Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. What are you giggling about over there?
No, just still getting ripped about Cocaine Bear.
And the glasses.
And the glasses.
And criticizing Ryan for not knowing what position Lars Eller
Everybody
plays.
knows Lars Eller's a forward. Come on, Ryan.
It was just a slip.
It was a Floridian slip.
Exactly.
Jeff Paterson from Sakaris and Price on the Rink podcast joins us now. Canucks hosting Minnesota on Thursday. Again, we have to be reminded of that because the game seems so irrelevant at this point. All due respect. Jeff, thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm good. And if I could just take a quick second here to put Ryan in his place.
Yes.
I generally don't do that. I like to have some fun with Ricky, but the trade deadline's not arbitrary, Ryan. Like it is set out in the CBA. It's 40 days from the end of the regular season. So
exactly.
It doesn't change from year to. I mean, it might change from day to day, year over year, but it's the same length of time from the end of the season. So, mark it down. 40 days. It's in the CBA.
Should it be earlier, Jeff? CBA aside?
I'm not sure that I need it to be any earlier. I mean, yesterday was an incredible day. I don't know what the networks are going to do on Friday, and hopefully for you guys, you have some things to talk about because you've extended. I know you've got the extra hour.
Yes.
I'm fine where it is.
We got Jeff? Okay. Jeff, you back?
I think so. Did I break the show again?
No, I'm not sure.
I think you did.
Well, I think last week when you went off the air, we went off the air. That isn't the case this time around, although we'll have to go with the phone line versus Zoom. Do you remember where we were, Jeff, in our conversation?
I was just putting Ryan in his place, but I think I was done with that.
Yeah.
No. I think I was done with that.
Our poll question, bet99.net poll question. You can have your go at it here. Did the Canucks get enough for Luke Schenn, a third rounder?
I think like a lot of people, the hope was that they were going to be able to squeeze something out of somebody to get a second-round pick. And when they held him out of the lineup and sent him home from Nashville and he didn't play these last 4 games and they were protecting the asset for trade-related reasons, certainly it felt like they had something on the front burner. But the longer it went, the more I kind of felt that maybe this was the area that they were going to wind up in. And with the Leafs, it's going to wind up being a late third-round pick. Like it'll be close to the 100th overall pick, which – it's unfortunate because you look at Riley Stillman with a year left on his contract and making more money than Luke Schenn essentially netted them a guy that was a third-round pick for the Buffalo Sabres. And I think we would all agree that Luke Schenn has had a better season, is a better player, probably has more value than Riley Stillman. And the Canucks did well to consummate the deal with the Sabres. But I guess just grading it against that, I kind of thought that Luke Schenn might be able to return them something better than that. But at the same time, when they made the deal, a couple of days before the deadline, Gavrikov was still out there. Ekholm hadn't been moved yet. Chychrun, obviously, and they're in a different area code in terms of the salary and the players that they are. But still, teams were looking at different options. Boston obviously went out and made its move. And so I think the Canucks maybe sort of recognized that the market was speaking to them and that, if Toronto had a third-round pick on the table, they better jump at it. And I think it's important, too, to remember, as much as everybody in Vancouver, and I do think it's universal, everybody loves Luke Schenn. I mean, how can you not? The leadership, the season that he's had, but the Leafs are picking him up as a depth guy. Like on Toronto's team, he's going to be a 6th defenseman. Some nights he might be the 7th guy, can't even get into the lineup. So it's not about the fact that he's bumping up against a career high for points. The points don't matter. The Leafs score enough. They're not looking for that version of Luke Schenn to come in and generate offense. If he does, it's gravy for them. But the Leafs were looking to acquire a depth defenseman. And so in saying that, it takes two sides to make a deal. Toronto put a third rounder on the table, and the Canucks jumped at it.
Okay, Jeff, we do this too often in this city. The trade deadline is going to come. The Canucks are out of the playoffs. So what do you want to see from the organization the rest of the way? Bring the kids up from Abbotsford and play the heck out of them?
Sure, at some point I've got an appetite for that, but the kids that they've got here, I'd like to see them play them a little bit more. Like, Aatu Räty may not be ready for the National Hockey League. He's 20 years old, and I know that he was a piece of what they got in the Horvat deal, but they called him up, and by his own admission, he hadn't played particularly well after the trade down in Abbotsford, but they gave him this chance. But if he's here, find a way to play him more than 4 minutes, because honestly, like, how can you assess a guy who's playing 4 minutes a night? And that's what he ended up playing. He played less than 2 minutes of the final 40 minutes in Dallas the other night. Kravtsov, hadn't played in a month essentially. And then he traveled all day Sunday. They throw him in the lineup without a practice. I get it. Like, Rick Tocchet doesn't know these players. And so there is, sort of that factor of the coach not having the trust that we always hear about between coaches and players. But Kravtsov ended up playing, 8.5 minutes. The problem with that is if you pin these young guys to the bench, then somebody's got to play. And guess who's playing? Well, it's Elias Paterson. It's Andrei Kuzmenko. And if you're going to lean on those guys, they've got enough skill to go out and win you hockey games. So, I think for the Canucks, scale back the ice time. We know what Paterson can do. We know what Kuzmenko is capable of. Quinn Hughes is playing incredible hockey right now, and man, are they leaning on him. And that's a little bit of a different story because they are so thin on the back end. But if you've got some of these younger players, I'd like to see them get a little bit more leash just to make some assessments. And hey, if you come to the conclusion that Ratu's not ready for the NHL, then sure, send him back down to Abbotsford. And maybe at that point, you bring up some of the other guys that have earned an opportunity at this point. But I would just say for Rick Tocchet, quit leaning so heavily. It's not in his own words. And in that first press conference, he said, you can't have those top end guys playing as much as they are. And yet, they're playing more under Tocchet right now than they were under Bruce Boudreau.
And Jeff, I can't remember the last time a player in Vancouver got 4 minutes of ice time. And I think it was after the two periods. I don't think he saw a shift in the third. If he did, there wasn't much on the ice. The guys I was talking about...
It was probably Goldobin, Ricky.
Yeah, Goldobin. Yeah, no kidding. The guys, two guys I'm really talking about when I say this are Rathbone and Hoglander. They need to know from the organization if they're in the mix for the future. That's the two I'd like to see get called up and see what they can do.
Well, I find this curious, and it might be nothing, but it could be something here that the Canucks, 2 days ahead of the deadline, are running with 21 players on their active roster, and that includes JT Miller, who we've heard is out anywhere from a week to week to week. So they have no extra parts. Now, Abbotsford's down in California and into Nevada for the next couple of nights. You can get guys here, but it's not as easy as just having them trek through the snow from Abbotsford to Rogers Arena. So I'm curious, is this trade related? Are they keeping roster spots open? It may be as simple as Curtis Lazar could be ready. We'll see. They're going to practice here later on this morning. Whatever the case, they've got 2 empty roster spots 2 days ahead of the trade deadline, and I just wonder if there is, if that relates to something that they've got in the hopper. Is this part of their grand plan? But just sort of file that away here as we move. It won't require roster moves, obviously, to get a couple of bodies in here. So they've got the slots, and they play tomorrow night. But right now, with no extra healthy bodies, I know you talked about, no plans to hold out Brock Besser for trade-related reasons. If something was close for somebody, and I'm not saying Besser, one of their other players, as it stands right this moment, they don't have any extra healthy bodies on the roster.
That's it. Yep.
Jeff, our apologies for the technical hiccup, but we got through the interview. Thanks so much. Happy trade deadline day, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks.